It's time for what makes Aetherfall truly a fantasy game: the magic of the world. Magic works differently here than in other games you may have played before. For example, your magic does not regenerate unless inside a magically irradiated area. Magical energy can be used even when reserves are empty, but this uses health and quickly can cause the player to kill themselves if not paying attention. Spells are broken up into several magical categories, each with their own types of damage that are resisted or do extra damage to specific enemies. These will all have unique skill trees, meaning you can specialize solely in fire or dark energy, for example. This differs from something like Skyrim, where not only does becoming an expert in destruction makes you great at shock, fire, and frost, but Skyrim's damaging skill tree did just that, damage and nothing else. No, in Aldera, every magic skill tree will have both spells that deal damage, provide buffs, and offer utility to the player. Finally, different magic trees have different difficulties in mastering, meaning some are easier to advance and learn new spells. Now, without further ado, let's discuss the different branches of magic you can choose from in Aetherfall. We start with fire, which obviously deals fire damage. It's an easy school to learn. These spells move at a slow to medium speed, and it can't be used underwater. The bonuses you'll receive when using its spells are the ability to burn down trees and foliage to eliminate hidden enemies, block enemies by placing fire along the ground, light oil bombs close on fire, melt ice, deal lingering burning damage, and cook food. Advanced users can level up the ability to increase fire spread, fear of flames, duration, AoE damage, and the flame colors. Ice, which deals ballistic and frost damage. Also easy to learn like fire. Its spells move at a slow to medium speed, and it can't be used underwater. Bonuses are the ability to slow enemies down, create frost walls and armor, freeze water to walk across, put out fires, make enemies slip, blind, and completely freeze them, and making frost weapons. It can be leveled up to increase freezing speeds, create stronger walls, armors, and weapons, and do better slowing abilities. Lightning. This deals electric damage and is slightly more difficult than frost and fire. It fires at a very fast speed. It doesn't have the range of frost and fire attacks, as it is not a moving projectile, but instead goes towards the nearest target in front of the player, which is not always the target intended. Bonus abilities are extra damage to metal armored enemies and enemies underwater, though this will hurt the player as well if they're in the water. It can stun, paralyze an enemy and make them fall over, can arc between different enemies, can be leveled to increase arcing conductivity, paralyzing chances, longer range, and increasing either magic or electric damage. Rock. This deals ballistic damage only, and has a similar difficulty to lightning. Its firing speed depends on the size of the rocks thrown, ranging from fast with pebbles and slow with boulders. Larger rocks also have a greater drop-off when used at range. This magic tree has a somewhat limited use, as it can't be used unless in a rocky terrain. It drains stamina as well as magic to cast. Bonuses of rock spells are the ability to make rock walls and armor. Armor is stronger physically than frost, but makes the player move slower. Rock walls stay up much longer than frost ones, and can even be used to make shelter. You can even make moving rock walls that block physical damage and projectiles, functioning as a mobile shield. You can make rock pillars to lift both the player and enemies off the ground, as well as rock prisons. You can make weapons such as warhammers and swords that can do any ballistic damage, and you can level it to improve the strength of armor, walls, and weapons, as well as the speed of movement in these armor and rock formations. Aether Magic. This is magic in its purest form. It's more difficult than rock or electricity to master. It fires instantaneously with great range. Now, this doesn't do magic damage. Instead, it rapidly fills an enemy's magic level. When an enemy's overfill on magic, they take damage and can even explode. This makes it much more effective against non-magical opponents, as they have no way to expel excess energy. It costs more magic than other spells. Bonuses are the ability to create magic armor and wall/bubbles that block magic and elemental damage better than rocks, but do not stop ballistic weapons nearly as well. You have the ability to reanimate corpses, which lowers reputation with some people. Can make armor, weapons, and reanimate better enemies, walls, reduce noise, and lower brightness from casting for stealth. Raise noise and brightness to deafen and blind enemies, and extend the size of protective bubbles. Mind Magic. This allows players to better control themselves as well as enemies. It's the same level of difficulty as Aether Magic to master. Like Skyrim illusion spells, Mind Magic and Aetherfall can make enemies either run away, stay calm, and attack allies. However, enemies can use Mind Magic on the player as well, adding a new challenge. Human enemies may also get allies to snap out of the effects of Mind Magic by yelling or slapping them, though with perks, the player's Mind Magic can become strong enough to overpower these attempts. Magic of the Mind also contains the magic tree of Telekinesis, both of the player and of objects. Telekinesis now can be a viable spell, allowing the player to pick up any small item and either bring it towards them or send it hurtling at an enemy. The size of the object, as well as its material, determine its damage and magical drain, as a teddy bear would cost less to throw, but do significantly less damage than, say, launching a greatsword. The player can pick up small enemies with Telekinesis, but cannot pick up humans, as this would be impossible to balance. However, the player can stagger human enemies by using Telekinesis on them, as well as the ability to stop incoming ballistic projectiles and fire them back. Telekinesis also allows the player to levitate off the ground, making it ideal for crossing bodies of water. Mind Magic can also allow the player to take over enemies and control them for a short period of time. It can be leveled up to increase potency, AoE, work on more types of enemies, receive night vision, lift heavier objects with Telekinesis, and stop more projectiles. Dark Magic. This, along with Light Magic, are the most difficult to master in the game. It works by drawing power from Untitled, the demon dragon god we talked about in the video you can see here now. It casts at a medium to slow speed. Bonuses are, it drains the health from enemies and gives it to the player, can create void-like portals to go from one location to another, create dark minions to help fight in combat, and much, much more. Can be leveled up to steal magic and stamina, as well as more health. Change the light level in the surrounding area to 0 to make sneaking much more effective. Create stronger minions, better portals, larger AoEs, and negate enemies from using healing magic. Light Magic. This draws power from Lucelai, the angel god of hope who stands diametrically opposed to Untitled. It does damage to demons and boosts karma around humans. Bonuses of the skill tree are that it can weaken enemies' will to fight, reducing armor and damage, and lowering player stress. It can heal the player and allies in both health and stamina. It has the ability to perform miracles, such as avoiding all damage for a short period of time, teleporting away from danger, producing a blinding light that prevents enemies from seeing you, or even receiving help from a mysterious guardian angel. It can be leveled up to get new healing spells, increase healing amounts, heal more allies, and perform miracles more often with stronger potency. Poison. Not actually magic, but I felt like this would be a good spot to talk about poison damage. Poisons are made with the chemistry skill, and can be applied to weapons, grenades, traps, and even specific armors. Poisons can blind enemies, deal upfront corrosive damage, and lingering damage. Finally, there is a type matchup recap. I whipped up a version of each of the damaging types affecting the several different enemy types in the game. This guide is not perfect, far from it. For starters, the total system does not take into account how often each of the enemies types show up in the game. An example of this is how bugs, bears, and deer have resistance to frost, making the spell tree have a lower total than others. However, these enemies don't show up quite as often as, say, humans, making their lower score an exaggeration. Another example is Dark Magic, which has the lowest overall score. This does not account for the fact that dark magic overall is more powerful than other spells, making it a strong choice against those who don't resist it. The final thing to consider is that armored enemies have different resistances, as well as the type of material they're wearing. That'll do it for today's episode. What magic tree will you be choosing when you first play Aetherfall? Or will you be choosing multiple magic schools? Let me know down in the comments. This has been Brian, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Bye for now.